Another one. I'm at a place in my career where I'd really like to step on the gas, but obviously being home with kids right now has slowed me down considerably. The stress I feel about career advancement and the exhaustion of caring for my family is wearing me down quickly. When I look when it looked like this was a 3 month, at most 4 month situation, I thought I could muscle through. Clearly that's not where we're at right now. How are you recommending that people think about well, you sort of answered some of this, but career progression and mental stability right now with everything going on?
I think I think it's the same thing I talked about before, is shifting your mindset, looking at the bigger picture, looking at the holistic picture. But the mental stuff and the emotional stuff, I think that's worth, we just talked a little bit about that, but I think it's worth talking a little bit more about.
Please.
The bottom line is that when you look at our brains handle short-term stress really, really, really well. And we've talked about this before. We suck at long-term stress, and this is long-term stress. So I don't care how good you think you are. Our brains are just not designed to handle it long-term. On top of just managing stress, our brains are not good at handling change. And I can't think of a situation that's forcing us to change more. The other thing our brains are not good at is handling ambiguity. I can't think of something that's more ambiguous than this. The other thing that's happening is grief. Whether you've lost someone, there's that, but also just all of us grieving over life is different now, and life will be different in the future. We're all grieving what we knew of life to be. All of these things coming together are just crashing at our heads and ultimately causing mental exhaustion. And this is why, I'm speaking for myself, at the end of the day, I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to look at my husband. I don't want to see anyone. I literally want to get under the blanket and watch Netflix and eat chocolate chips, if I'm to be completely honest. But this is the mental exhaustion. When you wake up, you don't feel that pep in your step and all of that. It's natural and it's happening to all of us, but this is where emotional wellness and emotional well-being comes into play. The bottom line is that everything that's happening is pounding at our mental well-being. And to ignore that is, I hate to say it this strongly, to ignore that is personally and professionally irresponsible. It's hard to admit. We're all feeling a little bit crushed. Mm-hmm. But the good news is that we can own that. And the first step to owning that is admitting that. And it is admitting that it feels kind of overwhelming and it feels not great all the time. And it feels hard and exhausting, even though it's we've been talking about this for months, and it's hard to say, I'm still struggling. But the bottom line is that we're still struggling collectively, because this has been going on for months and we do not know when it's going to end. So the ambiguity, the change, the grief, the loss, all of that is continuing. It hasn't let up. So to still feel this makes sense, but we need to own it. And we need to make sure, that's when, going back to your prioritization question, we need to make sure that we're prioritizing our emotional well-being. We need to make sure that we are taking what we need, taking the breaks, taking the days, taking some of the detox away from, taking some tech detox, whatever it might be. We have to be diligent about that, because if we're not, it just gets worse. This is not something that just you automatically pop out of. We have to actually do the work.
That makes sense. I also imagine that with the senior level people that you work with, it's a lot of personalities that feel they can't take that time off, or are genuinely in positions right now where they are trying to save a company, trying to save the jobs of everybody at that company, and trying to keep their family afloat. So if you cannot if it's just not going to be feasible for you to take a 5-day detox, take a 5-day vacation right now, what are other ways that people are, maybe it's not giving you the full mental refresh you need to bring that cup down, but maybe enough to kind of get you through to a period when you can? How are you recommending that those executives deal with it?
I'm talking even a half an hour.
Okay.
It does not have to be a 5-day detox. If you can do the 5-day detox, that's awesome. I just took last week off. It was wonderful because I hadn't taken a day off. I don't always follow my own advice, just to admit this out loud. I was working insane hours and not taking a day off. And you know what was ending up happening? I was leaking out all over the place, you know, and that affects all the people I'm working with. This is emotional contagion. Like I affect everyone I'm around. I infect everyone I'm around. So I had to do it. So even a half hour, even 15 minutes, even if it's getting on, like going for a walk around your block, or shutting the computer down at 9 o'clock at night, even if you have to be back on at 10 o'clock at night, whatever your situation is, giving yourself, figuring out what makes you feel okay, what makes you feel like momentarily refreshed, and taking that, even if it's a deep breath in and out. I know that sounds weird, but that, again, there's science behind this. The oxygen in our brains. One hour a week, talking to a therapist, talking to a coach, whatever it might be. But we all, even the busiest of people, we all can take even a little bit of time to just give our brains a second to think straight. Because the other thing is, if we're not doing that, we're also not as productive as we should be.